guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, The Bright Side Girl, and today we're going to be doing my Retoldathon reading wrap-up. In case you somehow missed it, Retoldathon was my 2-week retelling-themed readathon reading party that we just recently wrapped up. We had the best time. We had so many people participating. A lot more than I expected because this was the first year for it. I will link the announcement if you were just curious about what it all entailed down below in the description, as well as the first reading vlog, which should be up, and the second one is coming. I'm just a little bit behind on editing it. I did some retelling themed activities and things too, so be sure and check it out. But for now, we're going to talk about everything I read for the readathon. This hit in the middle of the month, so I will have a August reading wrap up that has the first week of August and the last week and a half of August coming out in like a week or two. But this will be everything I read for the 2 weeks in the middle. Hopefully that makes sense. So I read 20 books for the readathon. Most of these were on audiobook. I did a lot of graphic novels, a lot of short audiobooks. That's how I'm able to get so many. I also work from home the majority of the time, so I can kind of listen while I work and clean and things like that. Alright, so first we're going to start off with the graphic novels. Okay, we're going to start off with pretty much the only one that I didn't like, and that was Snow, Glass, and Apples by Neil Gaiman and Colleen Doran. This is a very adult graphic novel. I feel like it gets shelved in middle grade and kids a lot, and this is extremely adult. It's very sexual and very graphic. I pretty much hated this. It might be my new most hated book of all time. I'm not a big fan of like super graphic sexual things in books anyway, but this one was like also disturbing and kind of gory, and the graphic parts were just so gross. There was like necrophilia in here and like kids doing sexual acts to the parents, and it was just really bad in my opinion and way too dark. So I gave this 1 star. I did finish it just because I wanted to rate it on Goodreads because I did not like it. The art was really beautiful, but this is a Snow White retelling, and Snow White is like a child vampire, and I hated it. So then I read Peter Pan, the graphic novel. So this is the Peter Pan book in graphic novel form. So it follows the original Peter Pan story very well. It's very short. I think this took me like 15 minutes to read. There's a whole series of this style of graphic novel that is particular books and movies and classics in graphic novel form. This would be a really good one for kids. I enjoyed it too, but it's just a short, really quick graphic novel, so I gave this one 4 stars. Then I read The Beast's Tale. This is a full color edition manga, and there are 2 of these. So there's Belle's Tale also, which is marked as the first one. I don't know if it matters what order you read them in or not. I didn't realize that until after I read it. This is only like the 3rd manga that I've read. I loved that it was all in color. So this is from Disney, so it follows the Disney movie pretty closely, but you're getting more of Beast's perspective and like how he became the Beast and his thoughts during everything. The art style was incredible, and if you love the Disney movie in particular, I would highly recommend. I will be reading Belle's sometime here soon, so I gave this one 4 stars. Next I read Snow White. This is a graphic novel that is a retelling of Snow White based in the 20s, which was really interesting. This is a very short graphic novel, mostly focused on the art, which was really beautiful. And I love the 1920s setting. We've got our evil queen is like this beautiful, glamorous, like 1920s gal. And like the 7 dwarves are like almost like Oliver Twist type boys that Snow White hangs out with. I really liked this, but it was extremely short and just kind of like a fun, quick one to get in. So like a 3.5. Then I read Evil Thing by Serena Valentino, and this is another Disney graphic novel, and this is like the backstory on Cruella. The art style in this is absolutely fantastic. The story was so engaging and intriguing, and I loved it. I actually stayed up later to finish this one. Also very heartbreaking because it's a villain backstory, so things don't end super well. Also kind of got like a 20s vibe about it. I really liked it, but it does have that sad ending. You kind of need to know that when you're going into villain backstories. So I gave this one a 4 star. This is considered a villain's graphic novel. I'm not sure if it will follow the villain series that I'm going to talk about in a second or not, because you have a Cruella book in that series as well. But I really enjoyed it. And then the only other book that I physically read was Mechanica by Betsy Cornwell, and this was tied for my favorite book of the readathon. This is a Cinderella retelling. Cinderella retelling and villain backstories were one of the prompts for the readathon. This is a steampunk Cinderella retelling that features fae as well. and this was so good. So Cinderella's mom is like, I think she's like part fae or works with the fae, and she is an inventor and she can do like these magical steampunk creations. And of course her parents wind up passing away, and our main character kind of inherits this love of like creating things. She's got an evil stepmother and evil stepsisters, and I just love the setting in this. I love the twists on what the ball was, and the glass slipper and all of that were just so unique. It had a lot to do with friendship, which was really, really precious and sweet. I've been meaning to read Betsy Cornwell for forever, and this one did not disappoint. I just knew I was gonna love it. And I did. So 5 stars. Then the first book I actually read for the readathon, we're not going in a particular order just because I'm a little chaotic today. I'm not quite organized. So I read Heart of Moors by Holly Black via audio. The narrator's right here for all of the audios. This narrator is one of my favorites, so that's one of the reasons that I chose it. I really enjoyed this. So this is a backstory on Maleficent. This very much follows the Maleficent movie. This is another Disney book. I did a lot of those for the readathon. This is by Holly Black, is another reason that I picked it up. I really liked it. It was really magical. It followed the movie pretty good, but had like its own little twist in here. The atmosphere was really good. I wound up giving this one 4 stars. Then I read A Wicked Thing by Rhiannon Thomas on audio, as well as the second one, which is Kingdom of Ashes. And this is a Sleeping Beauty duology. I did a lot of Sleeping Beauty-esque books for the readathon. That was kind of the theme on accident for the readathon for me. This is one I've been meaning to read for forever. So in this one, the premise is that Sleeping Beauty has been asleep for 100 years, and she gets woken up by a prince, and she's like, who are you? Why are you kissing me? He's like, I'm here and we're gonna get married and the kingdom will be saved and magic is restored. And so it's kind of like the aftermath of her waking up and finding out like all of her family is dead, everything she knows is gone, and the whole kingdom is kind of in shambles. So I really enjoyed this one. I didn't fully love the narrator, but she was doable. I gave this one 4 stars and the second one like 3.5. It has like an old school YA vibe about it, even though it's not super old, like maybe 5 or 6 years. We have several love interests in here, which were all really fun, and it has a lot of magical elements as well, so I really enjoyed this one. Then I read Wondrous Strange by Leslie Livingston. So this was a Midsummer Night's Dream retelling, and I did the Midsummer Night's Dream play in high school, so I have a sentimental attachment to it. And this one was so fun because our main character was actually doing the Midsummer Night's Dream play, and then elements of the play were kind of like coming into her life, so it has a lot to do with fae and fairies, and it ties everything in really well. Not like a full retelling, but a lot of the elements of Midsummer are in here. We have a lot of fun characters. There's like a hilarious horse. There's a really sweet love interest. Again, this kind of has like an old school vibe, which I personally really enjoy. It's a really quick read. This is the first book in a trilogy, so I will be reading the next 2 here pretty soon to finish up this series. I really liked the narrator. She was fantastic, and overall it was just like such a fun, adventurous, magical read. So I gave this one 5 stars. All right, next up I read Fairest of All. Sorry you guys, some of these are library copies, so it's making it really shiny. And then The Beast Within, which I can't get the sticker off that they put on the library. This is part of the Villain series, again by Disney, again by Serena Valentino. So the first book is Fairest of All, second book Beast Within, and these do all go in order, unlike some of the other series. So you do need to read them in order. They follow the different villains and the different characters, but they have a lot of elements that tie in together. So definitely read them in order. So this is the background on Snow White. They are very good. They're very dark, and of course have that like not so happy ending because it's a villain backstory. I really liked this one in particular. It's very magical. This is a reread for me. I read the first 3 like years ago physically, and I decided to do them via audio because I never finished the series. This one was like a 4 star. This one was like a 3 star because I'm not sure why they chose the Beast as the villain in the book versus like Gaston. She made him so unlikable that it was hard for him to redeem himself, whereas in this one she doesn't really need to be redeemed because she's the villain. So this one was like a 3 star, and I do plan on reading the rest of the books before the end of the year, and I'll let you guys know what I think. So I did enjoy them, and the narrator is so good. Then I read The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Bador. I've had this series for forever, and this is an old series. It's like 20 years old. So this is the first in an Alice in Wonderland trilogy. This one had a little bit of a slower start. So in this one, Alice Hart, heir to the Wonderland throne, must flee through the pool of tears to escape her murderous Aunt Red. She finds herself lost and alone in Victorian London, befriended by an aspiring author named Lewis Carroll. She tells the violent, heartbreaking story of her life, and she trusts the author to tell the truth so that someone somewhere will find her and bring her home. But he gets the story all wrong and even spells her name incorrectly. So basically he is like telling her story, whereas like everybody else thinks she's kind of crazy, and you're following like the events of Wonderland, why she had to leave, and it's just a really cool take on Alice in Wonderland. It has a lot to do with like war and magic and royalty. It has a little bit of a slower start. I love the Victorian London setting for most of it, and I just really enjoyed this overall. I thought it was super adventurous. This book is also so pretty. I love it. Again, I'll be finishing this series before the end of the year, and it was just a really good start, and I gave this one 4 stars. Then I read this short little novella called A Spindle, Splintered. So this is book 1 of 2, which is, they're very short novellas, so they're like only 100 pages, which is why I did this one. There was a day where I needed like a very short audiobook. I love the narrator. This is a very fun and kind of wacky, adventurous retelling of Sleeping Beauty. It does have some darker elements in here. It has a more feminist take, a little bit more of a modern take on it. But overall, I really liked it. At first, I thought it was going to be a little too dark in like the way that I don't like, but I did enjoy it. The narrator was really great. Our main character has like a disease that she is not going to live forever, and so she kind of connects to Sleeping Beauty, where she feels like she could just wake up from this disease, then everything would be solved. So she kind of has an obsession with Sleeping Beauty, and it's like thrust into her world. So very magical and very fun. I loved the audio, but I would recommend at least getting this book from the library because it has such beautiful graphics and imagery throughout it, and it's really short. We'll be reading the second one sometime soon because I did enjoy this one. It was like a 3.75. Then I read Go the Distance by Jen Kalanita. This is part of the Twisted Tale series. So this is a whole series of Disney books that are retelling and twisting the Disney movies. So they all have a different premise. This one is What If Meg Became a Greek God? This series does not all connect together, so they are all standalones. I read the first 3 just to be sure. I didn't love the Aladdin one. I didn't love the Little Mermaid one, but I really enjoyed the Sleeping Beauty one. So I read this one for the readathon because a lot of you recommended it to me, and I really enjoyed it. This has the vibes of the Disney movie, but also like a unique twist. It follows Meg mostly, and she really captured Meg's personality really well. The narrator was so fun. So we don't have a lot to do with Hercules in here, but the plot for this was just fantastic. I don't want to give too much away, but I really liked it. So if you like the Hercules movie, I would definitely recommend. This was a 4-star. Then I read Everland by Wendy Spinall. Again, this is book 1 in a trilogy, and I will be reading the rest before the end of the year. I've been doing so good not starting new series, but this readathon, there were just too many that I wanted to try. So this is probably the one I wanted to start the most because I've heard the most good things about it. So this is kind of like a post-apocalyptic future retelling of Peter Pan. And so we've got Wendy and the Lost Boys, and we've got a disease that wipes out pretty much everyone except for the kids and Captain Hook, and Captain Hook is trying to find a cure for this disease by stealing children and like researching them and taking their DNA and things. And so Peter Pan and his Lost Boys have like a little protection area that they have created to hide from Captain Hook, and we have Wendy and her brothers and everything in here, and it's so good. I loved this. It was so adventurous. The plot was so fun and so unique. The next book is an Alice in Wonderland retelling, but it still follows these main characters, so they do connect together. The narrators were absolutely phenomenal. I've listened to them before and really loved them, so highly recommend, and this was like a 4.5 star. Then I did the buddy read, which was Daughter of Sparta. So this was the buddy read that you guys decided on between Instagram and YouTube for the readathon. So this is book 1 in a duology, and this is basically a retelling of Daphne and Apollo. I really enjoyed this one. I was kind of putting off reading it because it was longer, and all the other ones I've read were like shorter audiobooks, but I did really enjoy the narrator. This ties a lot of our other Greek gods in here as well, which was really unique. So in this one, 17-year-old Daphne has spent her entire life honing her body and mind into that of a warrior, hoping to be accepted by the unyielding people of ancient Sparta. But the unexpected encounter with a goddess, Artemis, who holds Daphne's brother's fate in her hands, upends the life she's worked so hard to build. So we have a bunch of different Greek gods in here. We've got a nice little romance. Almost all the books I read were young adult. I don't know if I said that or not. This as well. I really enjoyed it and I gave it like a 3.75. Then I read Because You Love to Hate Me, edited by Anne-Marie. This is 13 tales from 13 of our favorite young adult authors like Renee Audier, Simone Shinani, Susan Dennard, Marissa Meyer, all things like that. And then they're prompted by 13 of our favorite booktubers. This is older, so like 2016. This was really interesting and I liked the prompts from the booktubers, but I didn't enjoy very many of the stories. I did like Susan Dennard, Victoria Schwab, and Marissa Meyer's stories, but I didn't love a lot of the other ones. I felt like some of them were kind of rushed. I don't even know how to explain the booktuber portions. Like they gave the author a prompt, but then they also had like a little thing that they added at the end as well. So it was kind of odd because they were all different. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to keep this one because I just didn't like enough of the short stories, but it was very interesting and all the stories revolved around some kind of villain and a twist on that. So probably like a 3-star. Then I did Grace of Wild Things by Heather Fawcett. This is the only middle grade book that I read via audio and I loved the narrator for this one. So this is a retelling of Anne of Green Gables, except Anne thinks that she is a witch and she goes to live with a grumpy witch in like a magical forest. It has like a good fall, almost spooky vibe about it, but really mild, so incredibly magical. Heather captured Anne's personality so well. She just has that like optimism and drama that we need from Anne, and it was so interesting with all the magical elements, and there's like potions and there's little like fairy tale things mixed in here as well. The ending of this was so precious and sweet. This has like solidified Heather as like a favorite author for me because Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies is my favorite book this year. That's her other adult book that she wrote this year. And I just love this so much and I highly recommend you check it out. It was so, so good. And it was another 5-star. And then lastly, I listened to Princess at the Midnight Ball. Again, this is the start of another trilogy. This is by Jessica Day George, who I've been meaning to read for a while. She does a ton of retellings. So this is a 12 Dancing Princess retelling, but what's cool about this one is that each book in the trilogy follows a different sister, but is a different fairy tale. So this is 12 Dancing Princesses. The next one I think is Cinderella, and the next one's Red Riding Hood, but they still follow sisters from the original story. I love this. It was such a classic traditional retelling, but it had its own unique twist to it. It was so magical and like enchanting. It solidified that 12 Dancing Princesses, one of my favorite fairy tales to retell ever. I just love the like sisterly aspect and the confused father and the princes. So good. If you guys don't know the fairy tale, you need to look it up. 12 sisters who keep sneaking away every night to go to a magical ball and their shoes get torn up. Their father, the king, doesn't know how, and he hires different people to come and try and figure out what's happening. I love the love interest in here. It was so fun. It was just really magical and sweet, so I gave this one 4 stars, and I will be reading the rest very soon. Okay, you guys, so that is everything I read for Retoldathon. I had such a great 2 weeks of reading. I had so much fun doing activities and watching movies, and overall this was just a really successful first year. I kind of knew it would be because retellings are just so much fun. So here is everything that I read for the readathon in like a visual format. Such a good successful first readathon, and I enjoyed almost everything I read, which is kind of rare, I feel like. So we only have 2 readathons left for the year. The Not So Scary-a-thon announcement should be up or very, very soon. If it is, I will link it down below in the description as well as up in the cards. That's the next readathon, all themed around like fall, Halloween, cozy type books, so stay tuned for that. Let me know if you've read any of these books down below in the comments as well, or which ones you wound up reading for Retoldathon. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you next time on the bright side.